Welcome to Jay's Naughty Wood. It's a one-man shop. This is my journey into woodworking. Come learn with me.
Alright, we are setting off on the barber shop drawers. This request comes from the ladies down at A Cut Above Barbers. It is the shop that I did the sign for. They requested trays, and the request was made. I accepted without hesitation. Something that I normally would kind of do is hesitate on it because I've never done it before. So I'm not as quick to be like, yeah, I got this. But I have been gaining confidence in my abilities and what I can do. The process of this, especially with the dado cuts and cutting the grooves in this, is something I've not been very successful and clean with in the past. So this project provided a lot of that practice and work. So here we go, hit that button and let's get after it. Alright, the first part here, I cleaned up the board a little bit. It cut through a little rough, so I just fixed that little edge on it. Here we are measuring out. I have a specific space every 2.5 inches from the inside of the wall to the inside of the wall. So from edge to edge, I have 2.5 inches, so I'm just double checking here and make my first line. We'll cut off the first side pieces, side walls here. We'll get them going, measured out, sand it down, cleaned up, and we're going to move over to the table saw here real quick. And once we hit the table saw, I'm hitting those dados. We're going to push it through. Essentially, it takes 2 passes with the blade thickness. If I hit it the right size, both sides, then I will be able to just do 2 passes on this, and the 1/4 inch ply that I have that's going to be used for the separators will slot in there nice and tight and get through it. I don't hit every one right on spot, so some of these take 2, some of these take 3 passes, but I'm making sure to get a shallow pass on that groove just because I want it to fit just right. I don't want to overcut, rather undercut, keep going. So this project is something, again, that I have not done before. I've not done organizing trays. I've done some practice with these dados on this table saw and just not been good. These ones came out for the most part. There's a couple of them that were a little too big, but for the most part it went pretty smooth. I was excited about it. I mean, I've discovered I need to get a new blade for this, which I'll do, but these slide in pretty well. I, at one point in the middle of this, also experimented with taking this pine board and using that, thinning it down, just because the process of wood burning, which is gonna be the finishing technique on this, inch ply or any plywood just kind of wants to catch fire. It doesn't really want to give that burn mark in the ply stuff for the grain and the plywood. It just wants to burn. So I was kind of worried about the look for that. At the end, I ended up with the ply sheets and doing the wood burning on it anyways. I was just very careful and put out fires where needed. Alright, it's time for the zoom. So here we go. Throughout the next few minutes, we're just looking and watching the process of me getting these dados cut, sizing them up on all 3 boards. Initially, I did the first board and put it together because I was waiting on the customization piece for the other 2. So I kind of pushed, got it done, and then took it down and got my answers for the other customization piece, and they came back. So you'll see me in a different, essentially it's going to be a different day, but different time, come back to this and get the other 2 pieces out. And yeah, we're getting after it. We are back. The process here is I'm making sure to get the walls cut on the sides. The idea here is these pieces, I'm trying to match the height. They have a specific height to fit in the drawers that the barbers use. They use toolboxes, big old toolboxes, and it needs to sit in there just right. I have the height, I have the measurements, so I'm just cutting these up and making sure they're all the same. And the idea here is that these will go on top of the pine board on the base, and then the front piece and the back piece will go on the outside of the board, only to give the depth in each slot as much room as possible, instead of coming in and losing some of that depth for them. Later on you'll see me cutting this again on the table saw. I'll explain that why, but the idea here is we're getting the pieces together. It's coming together really good. I'm gonna put on the edges and wait for the customization point at this time. I don't have any of them when I'm doing this, so it's just a prep spot and getting everything going until I get that customization piece and finalized what they want on it. Then we get after it again. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and attach these side walls on either end to the board, because I know that's where I'm going. I need space to write in and do that customization piece, so I leave the middle just grooved and not walled, because I want to make sure the grooves go in between. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to dado the grooves into the side wall or the front and back wall, I should say, at this point, so I didn't want to put anything in walls wise on the front and back. The whole tray is assembled using brads and Type Bond 3. In my experience, Type Bond 3 is going to hold very well. The brads are just to keep it in place until it dries, essentially. Gives a little bit extra support, but that Type Bond is king pretty much with the glue ups and stuff. It's also not going to have a whole lot of pressure on it at all. They're not going to be pulling on the drawers or pulling on the sleeves and the dividers, so it's just going to sit in the drawer and be set, so should easily be good enough. Alright, stacked up, ready to go. We're cutting these down into the 1.25 inch. They're actually 1.5 inch cuts, but they reach 1.25 inch with the dado in the grooves. So I wanted to make sure that these were separate enough so they can fit all their tools in, their clippers and etc., whatever they wanted to use for these slots, and that the height wasn't too much, so they didn't have to, you know, get their knuckles on the wood pieces or anything like that. They can reach in simply and just grab. Alright, we're transitioning to the table saw here because I went down to the barber shop at this point and I was on my way to the hardware store because I needed to get another thing of propane just in case, and I wanted to pick up clear coat and make sure I was set on the finish. I went down to the barber shop in between because, one, it was on the way. Two, I had a couple questions. I wanted to double check the height. I also needed to let them know that I didn't want to raise the material costs on them. I only used 5 boards, and I told them 5 boards. I didn't want to go and use a 6 board, so the last tray that I had was actually a lower profile. It wasn't as tall as the other 2. And when I went down there, the barber was like, wait a minute, lower profile, come in, we gotta go remeasure. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, my brand is different than theirs. The other 2 barbers have this specific brand of toolbox, and it's different. The craziest part about this is that that lower profile one that I had already put the sides on was the exact cut that I would have needed to make them for it to fit. So I only had to adjust one of the 2. Somehow, some way, my short board or whatever, my material shortage, literally was the exact height that needed to fit in that other brand. So I took them, fixed the fences to the boards, the outside on these, and made them 2 of the 3 the smaller size. Now it's time to go ahead and assemble the walls. I have already put on the customized portion of these at this time, so I know where that's going, and we can assemble and start getting after it. Here I need to take a moment and say, wait for the glue to dry, because if you don't, it'll start coming apart and you'll have to reclamp it and redo everything anyways. So just be patient, because, well, yeah, that might have happened to me. But the excitement got the best of me. I fixed it, made sure we're set, all the seams are tight at the end of the day, and we're good to go. So we're just going to put on the front and back of these boards and these pieces, get these trays looking like trays here. next piece we need to do is make it pretty. Let's get into this wood burning here. It's so satisfying to just sit and watch the grain pull up, darken up. It is also so pretty. Like, the idea of this was cool. Only done it a little bit, and just to do it on these trays to me was a big scale, a larger scale, 3 times, but it just looks good, and the pine grain comes out really well with this technique. Just taking a little propane torch, go slow across. There's certain spots where I need to be careful, like if you see in the center here, the name is done in that pin. There's a pin that has heat reactive ink, and it burns really like quick. I'm getting these dark lines here, and it pretty much darkens those lines up as soon as it gets a certain temperature, using that ink. I only use the ink for the writing piece. The rest of this is just natural wood grain coming out in the burn. These trays came out better than I would ever have expected or thought I could do even a month ago, a week ago, prior to getting this project and doing this. It was crazy. We rounded over the inside top groove with the round over bit, and the outside the round over bit, just to make it a little smoother, a little more appealing on those edges. And these things are just so pretty, and the reaction from the ladies, and you'll see at the end here the fit into the drawer. Man, these things were awesome. It was a fun project to do. I learned a lot, gained some time on the table saw, gained some time with grooves and dadoing and all of that. Got a new little neat tool with the ink pen, time on the torch, and how this specific wood burns with the pine. It's all good experience, but just these things came out so nice. Very pretty, very, very precise on the cuts and everything. They're exact triplicates minus the height on the one, but smooth.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment. Leave feedback. Whatever you want to do, hit that share button. And I will see you next time on Jay's Naughty World.